The wind screamed across the frozen plains like a wounded spirit. Snow hammered against the old cowboy's coat as he forced his horse forward through the blizzard. Night had swallowed the mountains hours ago, and the world beyond a few feet had disappeared into white darkness. Elias Boone tightened his gloves around the reins. At 60 years old, he had survived cattle wars, droughts, hunger, and winters colder than death itself. But tonight felt different. Tonight felt cursed. His horse suddenly stopped. "Come on, Rusty," Elias muttered. The horse refused to move. Then Elias heard it, a faint sound, a cry, not the howl of a wolf, not the creak of trees. A child. Elias froze. The crying came again, barely surviving beneath the roar of the storm. For a moment he thought he was imagining it. No one could survive out here, not in weather like this. But the cry came once more. Weak, broken, desperate, Elias climbed off his horse and pulled the lantern from his saddle. "Hey," he shouted into the storm. "Where are you?" Only wind answered him. Then, a tiny shape moved beside a snow-covered pine tree. Elias rushed forward, nearly slipping on the ice. And what he found stopped his heart. A little girl no older than 6, curled into the snow, barely conscious. Her face was pale blue from the cold, and she clutched a torn blanket tightly against her chest. But that wasn't what shocked him most. The girl wasn't alone. Wrapped in her arms was a newborn baby. The infant wasn't crying anymore. Too cold, too weak. "Oh Lord," Elias whispered. Without hesitation, he ripped off his heavy coat and wrapped both children inside it. The little girl's eyes fluttered open for a second. "Please," she whispered weakly. "Don't let him die." Then she collapsed unconscious. Elias moved fast. He grabbed both children and fought his way back to the horse. Snow slashed against his face like knives as he climbed into the saddle and held them close. "Stay with me," he said. "You hear me? Stay with me." The storm only grew worse. The cabin was still miles away. And deep in the darkness behind them, something moved. Elias finally reached his cabin near midnight. The old wooden house stood alone beside the frozen river, hidden among towering pines. Smoke barely rose from the chimney as the blizzard buried everything around it. He kicked the door open and rushed inside. Warmth, light, safety. He laid the little girl near the fireplace while carefully wrapping the newborn in blankets. The baby finally cried. A weak cry, but alive. Elias let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "You stubborn little fighter," he whispered. The girl slowly opened her eyes. Fear filled them instantly. She tried pulling the baby closer. "It's all right," Elias said gently. "You're safe here." The girl stared at him silently for several seconds before whispering, "They'll come." Elias frowned. "Who will?" The girl looked toward the dark window. "The men with guns." A chill crawled down Elias's spine that had nothing to do with the weather. Morning came slowly. The storm had finally weakened, though snow still buried the valley, waist deep. Elias cooked broth while the children slept near the fire. The little girl woke first. She sat up quickly, protecting the baby again. "What's your name?" Elias asked softly. "Hannah. And the little one?" "Jacob." Elias nodded. "You two alone out there?" Hannah's eyes lowered. "They killed Mama." The room went silent. Elias felt something heavy settle in his chest. "What happened?" Hannah hesitated. Then she spoke quietly. "We were hiding in the wagon. Mama told us not to make a sound. But the bad men found us." Tears filled her eyes. "They wanted Papa's money. Your father? He's dead too." Elias stared into the fire. He had seen evil before, but not like this, not against children. "Who were these men?" he asked. Hannah shook her head. "I only know their leader." Her voice trembled. "Blackwood." The spoon slipped from Elias's hand. His blood turned cold. He knew that name, Silas Blackwood. A ruthless outlaw Elias once rode beside 30 years ago. A man so cruel even criminals feared him. Everyone believed Blackwood disappeared years ago. But Elias knew better. Men like Blackwood never disappeared. They waited, and now he was coming. That night, Elias couldn't sleep. The fire crackled softly while the storm faded outside. He sat alone, cleaning his old revolver. His hands were slower now. Older, but steady memories haunted him. He remembered riding with Blackwood long ago when he himself was a different man. Hard, angry, reckless. Back then, survival mattered more than morality, until one terrible night changed everything. A family caught in crossfire. A little boy killed accidentally. Elias had left the gang after that. But Blackwood never forgave betrayal. A knock suddenly echoed at the door. 3 slow knocks. Elias stood instantly. The cabin went silent. Another knock. Hannah clutched the baby tightly. Fear filled her eyes. They found us. Elias loaded the revolver. Stay behind me. He walked toward the door carefully. The wind howled outside. Then a voice came through the wood. Need shelter. Elias opened the door slightly. A young native man stood outside, half frozen. I saw smoke, the stranger said weakly. Elias studied him carefully before letting him inside. The man introduced himself as Dakota. But the moment Dakota saw Hannah, his face changed. Hannah? The little girl burst into tears. Dakota! The young man rushed forward. Relief filled his eyes. I've been searching for you everywhere. Elias lowered his weapon slowly. Dakota explained that Hannah's family had been traveling with a small wagon caravan before Blackwood's gang attacked them 3 nights earlier. Most were killed. The survivors scattered into the mountains. Dakota had been tracking Hannah's footprints through the storm ever since. They won't stop searching, Dakota warned. Blackwood believes the child has something valuable. Elias frowned. What valuable? Dakota looked at baby Jacob. Then he carefully removed a leather pouch hidden inside the baby's blanket. Elias opened it. Inside was a folded paper, a land deed, but not ordinary land, gold land. An untouched valley rumored to hold one of the richest gold deposits in the territory. Elias looked up slowly. Now he understood. Blackwood wasn't hunting the children. He was hunting fortune, and anyone standing in his way would die. 2 days later, the storm finally cleared. But danger arrived with the sunlight. Elias spotted riders approaching from the ridge. 6 men, armed, Blackwood's gang. Get the children downstairs, Elias ordered. Dakota moved quickly. Elias stepped outside alone. Snow crunched beneath his boots. The riders stopped several yards away, and then Elias saw him, Silas Blackwood, older now. Gray beard, scar across his face, but the same dead eyes. Well, Blackwood smiled coldly. The ghost still lives. Elias rested a hand near his revolver. You should have stayed buried. Blackwood laughed. You always were dramatic? His eyes darkened. Hand over the children. No, the smile vanished instantly. You ready to die for strangers? Elias looked toward the cabin, toward the frightened little girl inside, toward the newborn child who had no one left. Then he answered quietly. Yes, Blackwood sighed. Pity. Gunfire exploded across the snow. Bullets shattered windows as Elias dove behind a water barrel. Dakota fired from inside the cabin with a hunting rifle. One outlaw fell instantly from his horse. The others spread out. Blackwood remained calm, watching like a wolf. Elias fired twice. Another outlaw dropped, but more kept advancing. The cabin walls splintered under gunfire. Hannah covered Jacob's ears as tears streamed down her face. I'm scared, she whispered. Dakota knelt beside her. So am I, he admitted softly. But brave people keep going anyway. Outside, Elias ran low on ammunition. Blackwood noticed and smiled. Then suddenly, a loud horn echoed through the valley. Everyone froze. More riders appeared from the trees, dozens of them. Local ranchers, hunters, settlers, men Elias had helped over the years without expecting anything in return. Blackwood's face darkened instantly. You brought an army? Elias smirked slightly. No. He cocked the revolver. I earned friends. The valley erupted into chaos. Blackwood's gang panicked under heavy fire. Several fled immediately. Others fell in the snow. Within minutes, the fight was over. Only Blackwood remained. He stared at Elias one final time. Hatred burned in his eyes. This isn't over. Elias stepped forward slowly. It is for me. Blackwood reached for his gun. Bang! Blackwood collapsed into the snow. Silence returned to the valley. At last, weeks later, winter finally began to loosen its grip. Snow melted from the mountains. The frozen river flowed again. And for the first time in many years, Elias Boone no longer felt alone. Hannah laughed while chasing chickens outside the cabin. Baby Jacob slept peacefully near the fireplace. Dakota repaired the barn roof. Life had returned. One evening, Hannah sat beside Elias on the porch as the sunset painted the mountains gold. "Why did you save us?" she asked quietly. Elias thought for a long moment. Then he smiled sadly. "Because once, a long time ago, I failed someone who needed me." Hannah held his hand gently. "But you didn't fail us." Elias looked at her. Tears quietly filled his old eyes. For years, guilt had haunted him like a shadow. But somehow, this little girl had done what nothing else could. She gave him peace. And in saving those children during the worst storm of his life, the old cowboy finally saved himself too.